You're tuned to the wavelength of your own beauty. It's your host, Ahmed Yunus, and this is The Steps. Hey, that is a shirt.
I earned it.
Well done.
5 days in Las Vegas.
For
5 days. They said the call came out for Nevada, and they said, if you're in Southern California and you can, go to Vegas. If you're in Northern California and you can, go to Reno. And I begged my colleagues on the rabbinic staff, and they picked up my slack, and I got in a car with 4 people, and I walked the streets of Vegas for 5 days.
That is absolutely awesome. Absolutely hot, I am assuming, as well.
It was unreal to celebrate that we turned Nevada blue, and he won, as did Proposition 8. You talk about cognitive dissonance.
Oh boy. That is that's going to be, I think, one of our main subjects. Okay, so here's what I want to do. I want to take a little bit more time than usual to do this introduction, and then we will launch. So I'm asking your permission to just, okay.
Wherever you want to go.
Stephen Julius
Chicurel-Stein.
Chicurel is how you pronounce it, Stein.
Chicurel. Yeah, and Chicurel, I can tell you, Mahmoud remembers when he was a boy in Cairo, there was Magasin Chicurel.
Oh, wow.
My husband is Sephardic through Turkey, and it happens that pretty much everyone in the world who is some form of Chicurel or Chicurel, whether it's French or Arabic or Turkish, it's all this family. So and they own these. It was like the Saks Fifth Avenue of Cairo.
Yeah, I can think of a number of kind of Cairo installations that are named for families from the region. Okay. I want to do this. I have to nail this, because if I don't nail this, I'm going to be mad at myself. Here we go.
I was ordained from Hebrew Union College, but actually in Cincinnati.
In Cincinnati.
Yeah,
son of St. Louis, yes?
I'm a St. Louis boy.
Son of St. Louis.
Very, very proud St. Louis boy.
4th rabbi in 6 generations of the Stein family. Are you ready? Now I'm going to take a hard turn. Hard turn. Former conductor of the Houston Symphony Orchestra. Conductor, St. Louis, Detroit, and a member of many other orchestras on your way to being a conductor. The son of Holocaust survivors.
My father, yeah.
Hebrew, French, German. And here's how I want to start. Have you seen this book yet? Cast by Isabel Wilkerson.
I know of it.
Okay, this is going to be one of the greatest books of all time. And here's how I want to start. You know this picture of like 1936 Nazi Germany. There's like these ship workers. Well, let me just tell the story. There's a famous black and white photograph from the era of the Third Reich. It is a picture taken in Hamburg, Germany in 1936 of shipyard workers, 100 or more facing the same direction in the light of the sun. They are howling in unison, their right arms rigid in outstretched allegiance to the Führer. If you look closely, you can see a man in the upper right who is different from the others. His face is gentle but unyielding. Modern-day displays of the photograph will often add a helpful red circle around the man or an arrow pointing to him. He is surrounded by fellow citizens caught under the spell of the Nazis. He keeps his arms folded to his chest as the stiff palms of the others hover just inches from him. He alone is refusing to salute. he is the one man standing against the tide. In 2006, you attended an event in which a speaker chose to go hard on Islam, and you stood up and walked out, and you walked out in offense that would be taken by your Muslim family. And the only other person that walked out with you was Judea Pearl, the father of Allah yarhamu, Daniel Pearl. And, you know, I think that's the right story here to begin this conversation. Because rarely in life...
Because it brings me to tears, is that...
Oh, hey, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that.
No, you're not.
You know,
you know why I'm
are...
sitting here?
Yeah.
Do you know why I'm sitting here?
Why?
Because Mahmoud and Zizi gave me that the first night we saw each other in Cairo. And these are my beloved pillows from the first of my 4 visits to Istanbul.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
That's why we're sitting.
And we should eventually tell the story of how you took couples from 3 houses of worship in downtown Los Angeles to the other side of the world. Often in life, we are met by the tension
Other
between...
side of 2 worlds.
Nice. Well done. Well done. Often in life, we're met with tensions. The tension between wanting to fully actualize our individual identities while maintaining some semblance of community. The tension between our need for the beauty of orthodoxy with the mercy of its reforms. The tension between the rhythmic dance between conducting an orchestra and orchestrating how a community conducts itself. Like, our relationship is, you're kind of like my rabbi. You're friends with my parents. You ask me questions about myself that nobody else would dare ask me. You always make sure I'm okay. You always, and like everything, money, your brother, marriage, everything. And I thought, I don't know how really to do this interview other than to begin by saying, you are that person. And so what I would love to do is begin with just your journey. This kid in St. Louis. And let's just flow from there. And then I hope that our second half of the conversation can be about your guidance for those who are trying to wrestle with the moment of the dunya, the world, and their own sense of ethical subjectivity. You're in the study, my brother.
Shalom Aleichem, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Shalom, my brother. Welcome. It's great to have you. So we're in St. Louis. There is a boy. His name is Stephen.
No, Steve.
Steve.
No,
nice.
No. Stupid, stinky Stevie Stein.
Oh my God.
In grade school. Stupid, stinky Stevie Stein. It was hard. That was not fun. Yeah.
Wow. And what was that environment like? Like, what you grew up seeing, hearing, smelling, what? Like the ecosystem that you were raised in looked like what?
I had the most amazing K through 12 public education experience I think one could ever have. And it was evenly split between University City in the eastern side of St. Louis County meaning right near the edge of the western boundary between the city, which is like where Wash U is, and the county. And then my junior and senior high school years, 7 through 12, in West St. Louis County in Chesterfield in the Parkway Central School District. And
were you in a Jewish community, or were you yeah?
Well, you're talking to the son of someone who escaped Germany in the middle of the night. And children of people who escaped Germany in the middle of the night have unique resonances through their life and through those of their family. And so I am certainly, I have been deeply shaped by my father's experience. Deeply shaped.
Tell us a little bit about him, would you?
He was spirited out in August of 1938, finally from Rotterdam, August of 38. He and his younger brother, my Uncle John, of blessed memory also, and my two grandparents, the four of them. Holland, America, took them to New York. They had been trying to escape for 2 years, unsuccessfully. And so our family from Germany went first to Holland, and then some split off to then Palestine. Others had left very early for Palestine. I have family in Jerusalem since 1933. But then my family, my grandmother had family in St. Louis. So the proper connection was made, and one thing led to another, and my family got on the ship. And
that path, forgive me, that path to freedom originated in the days of Isabel and Ferdinand, right? Like the Jewish life in Holland, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, etc., was, from the 1600s, Jews are trying to escape, and this is one of the paths to freedom.
Well, it certainly became one of the paths to freedom, partially because a lot of Dutch were willing to be brave. Willing to be brave. And in my family, my late cousin Tom, the great Dr. Thomas Stein in San Francisco, a renowned doctor, psychiatrist, professor, Tom was hidden by 2 Dutch farmers with their 5 daughters. He was the orphan war boy Tom. He had no last name. And he was hidden for 4 years. The last 2 was too dangerous. So they had, this is all he made for Steven Spielberg, the Show Off Foundation, as many, many, many survivors have done. The last 2 years, it was too dangerous. He was allowed to work during the day at the farm and eat. He couldn't sleep in the farm, in the house. He couldn't sleep in the stables. He had to sleep in the woods. For 2 years, a 13-year-old had to sleep in the woods. And I think to myself, how would I ever have had the fortitude to sleep every night in the woods for 2 years? Every night. And survive. Yeah. So going to Holland was an important place, and my family mostly did well. Some of my family ended up in the concentration camp, many of whom survived, including my cousin Tom's older brother Wolf, ended up in Bergen-Belsen next to, as we say in Dutch, Anne Frank, or Anne Frank. he was the same age as Anne Frank. So it was like 5A, the boys, 5B, the girls. Yeah, he knew her. My cousin Wolf.
So that experience
Died from coronavirus this year in Holland.
Oh my God.
90. Coronavirus.
I'm so sorry. So that experience comes to define, of course, your dad's worldview. And you're coming up, and when do you begin to fall in love with music?
So, as a result of my father's experience of life in Germany and the Middle Passage for us, and then a whole new world in America, far, far less magisterial than what our family experienced in Germany on every level. His, what I would certainly describe compassionately as deeply traumatized psychiatric issues only just rose up and rose up. So by the time he was an adult and I was born, for instance, he was born in St. Louis. As he said when I was 6 years old, playing in the driveway with my little neighbor friends, we're all playing, "Where do you come from?" And Cynthia's from Dallas, and Dina and Donnie, my next door neighbors, they came from Israel. And just at that moment, my dad walks around the corner and one of them says, "Mr. Stein, where do you come from?" "Oh, I came from St. Louis." And I thought in my little mind, okay, Grandma and Grandpa were born in Germany. Uncle John was born in Germany.
Wow.
Uncle John is younger than Dad. And I went to my mom later on. And I said, okay, look, I was out on the driveway playing, and this is what I heard. This is not right. And she said, "You're right. One day when you're older, you will understand. I will tell you. Not now, but one day when you're older, but you're right." So for instance, I didn't know this, but my grandparents, my grandmother, among other things, was a language professor at St. Louis University. My grandparents were told, if I came home speaking one word of German, they would never see their grandchild again. And they knew he wasn't kidding. So that was a very odd, realm to be in and be the only child. So that brings me around to the answer to your question. So everything in our house was all red, white, blue, American, apple pie, Elvis Presley.
Oh my God.
And so of course we had poker games. Every Saturday night there were poker games. Fine. For some reason, this little boy on Sunday morning was scared to get out of bed if my parents were, as they always did on Sunday morning, sleeping in. I was scared. And my mom said to me, "Here, you take this, honey." It was one of those transistor radios, right? December 1957, sorry. One of those transistor radios with the wire and the little earplug. She said, "You take this transistor radio, put it by the bed. If you wake up before us in the morning, you don't have to get out of bed. Just put the earplug in and turn it on. And you'll hear some nice music, and I think you'll feel better." And you know what? I did. And she was right. She was right.
Oh
and I think now, looking back, I think that was like the moment. The psychoanalyst would go to that moment and go, that's when it happened. That's when like a music comfort shelter thing happened in my brain.
When the dialectic tension began, when that rhythmic dance. Wow.
And then music became my escape. It was my survival from the trauma of my father's trauma.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And you excelled.
It was there. Well, I did.
You found you were blessed. I mean, I know. I'm just saying in the sense that, like, many of us find things that we go to deal with our trauma and the generational trauma of oppression.
Yeah.
you were blessed in that you excelled in what it is that you went into.
That's true.
And that kind of puts you on like an odyssey across America, right? Like America, like you, like it doesn't say like, you know what I mean?
I mean, from St. Louis, there was Chicago. There was Aspen. There was Los Angeles. There was Boston, Indianapolis, Seattle, Detroit, Houston, Chicago again, and then Daytona Beach area, and now Orlando area. So, and then that doesn't have anything to do with Europe or the Middle East. Oh, and I lived in Alaska for 6 years. I was the music director of the Anchorage Symphony. So I lived part-time in Anchorage.
This is amazing, man. It's just amazing. When did you feel like, you know what, there's something in the ethics of faith that I want to dive deeper into, and so I'm going to dedicate 5 years, 7 years of study? Yeah. What was that like? What?
This was like 1995, 96. I was in Houston. I was the conductor in residence, the number 2 conductor next to our music director, Christoph Eschenbach. He begged and twisted my arm like nobody's business. And for someone who, used to play Mozart concerti with Herbert von Karajan, that was an honor to have his arm twisting my arm to come and take care of the orchestra while he was gone. So I did, and it was great. This thing that I had felt that really animated my whole life, from the time probably I was about 13 or 14, which was, I want to conduct. Now I'm 36, 37, and the metaphor I kept coming to was, it's like the big hot air balloon, but the air is just starting to let go slowly but surely. And I don't know how, or I don't know why, and it doesn't feel dangerous, but something is happening and something is changing. And it wasn't that I was losing my love for music. It was losing that I need this or I'll die. This is my life, which I'd been feeling like nonstop since, as I said, like 13 or 14. So I was in the midst of exploring that using The Artist's Way. Do you know the book, The Artist's Way?
No. Tell us about it.
The Artist's Way, I forget her last name, Julia. Google it, The Artist's Way. It's very famous. It's a book that you both read and do. There's reading, but then every week, for instance, because the whole premise of the book is there is an artist within all of us. That may be so deeply buried under piles and piles of junk and static and crap. And we're going to go through a process that's going to help release some, if not most, if maybe even not all of that, and you're going to see what's underneath, and it's going to come. So one of her notions is that we have all this like static going on. So every day she wants you to journal. 3 pages. Handwritten, no typing. It's better by hand. You can write about anything, including, this is stupid, I don't know why I'm doing this. The idea being, at a certain point, things kind of flush out and other things kind of, and I found that happening. And the other thing is, you have to take yourself on an artist's date every week. Not your work, not what you need to do. I went to the circus one week. I did all kinds of fun and interesting things. And I'm journaling one day, And I'm just blah, 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 blah. I think I want to go to the synagogue. And I thought, whoa, who wrote that?
Wow.
Who wrote that?
Wow.
Who wrote that? And I thought, okay, wow, okay, number one, I don't have a concert this Friday. Number two, there's that synagogue that was designed by a disciple of Frank Lloyd Wright. There's great architecture in Houston, by the way. And I'm a big 20th
Get
century.
out of here, man.
So,
This guy went from the artist's way to Frank Lloyd Wright to...
Oh my God. Please keep going.
So
Wow.
I was free that Friday night. And I thought, okay, I'm going to try this. It'll be my artist date. I wrote it. If it says I want to go to shul, it's me, I should go. So I went. Now, it's not like I was never in the synagogue or the temple or the shul. They're all interchangeable, by the way. Hardly, but I was very unobservant. I didn't grow up in any observancy. And I felt Jewish to my core, but other than, H2O, holidays 2 only, basically. Yeah. Other than H2O, that was pretty much my deal. And I would go to the synagogue. I wasn't famous, but I was okay in a few of these cities. I was, especially Houston, Detroit, I was known. So I would be seen, and I've been seen. I've been recognized, and that's fine. But if I don't know where I am in the prayer book, or I forgot the Hebrew, or, oh God, I didn't know, everybody's standing, wow, I don't want to deal with that. Or, oh, he's alone, or, oh, he's with him. I don't want to deal with that. So I was...
Wow. Because that's not the role of the conductor. Yeah. That's not keep going, please.
So I went, and all of a sudden it was like, oh man, this is like sitting next to the nice warm fireplace. This is really nice. So I went again, and then a friend of mine said, you should talk to Stephen Miller, because he's a friend of Andy's. And Andy is 45, and he just started his first year in Jerusalem. And I said, okay, who's Stephen Miller? He said, well, you don't know Stephen Miller? I said, there's 2,000 people in this congregation. Oh, no, he's on the board. He's at Torah study. Do you ever go to Torah study? No. Oh, you might like that. Why don't you go to Torah study? And I was very just going with where I was going. So I went. And it was certainly a powerful experience, because up to that point, I had spent my life trying to understand a language, albeit a language of sound, but a language of sound that represents, in my mind, stories, narratives, ideas about the most powerful aspects of life and humanity and spirituality. And all of a sudden, I felt like this Bible is like a score that's so much broader and so much deeper, even than a Mahler symphony. Really? And then I was kind of on a journey. Okay, is this about me becoming just a more observant Jew? Is this about me being more like a professional Jew? So I brought Martin Luther King III to Houston. I was a vice president of the American Jewish Committee in Houston. I had him perform with me with the Houston Symphony, reading his father's words.
Wow.
Or was it this like crazy, thing that I don't know what this is, like, do I want to be a rabbi? I mean, it's the most insane idea in the world. And it was about a year of kind of touching those three things, and the rabbi thing it just felt like the doors kept flying open. And I felt like I was on a path where it was important to listen, very deeply listen to what I felt I was hearing. And so 2 nights in June, 13,000 on Friday and about 10,000 on Saturday with the Houston Symphony. Those were 2 great nights.
Wow.
And on Sunday, I was 40 years old and flew to Jerusalem, and 8 a.m. conjugating Hebrew verbs. Here we go. Yeehaw.
Wow. So we go from do, re, mi, fa, sol, or mi bemol to a totally new language, totally new way, totally new world, literally new geography, new food, new like what's this dude saying, like cultural, the whole nine. Oh my God. Okay.
When I first, well, I was not first in Jerusalem that summer of 98. That's when I began living there. I had been there before, but even then, when I would hear the muezzin call to prayer, I was scared.
Really?
Sure.
Wow.
Sure, I was scared.
It's a brand new world, man. Wow. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Oh, amazing.
Now, when I hear, if I'm in an Arab environment, an Arabian environment, and I hear a call to prayer, I'm terrible. Now I listen, it's like, I want to hear how good he is. Ooh,
what modal scale is he using? What maqam is this?
I'm interested. I don't know. I'm interested. Yeah. So
you get there, and it's like a schooling experience, right? Like now we're gonna move to a world where the process of intellection and the process of spiritual development, forgive the lack of good words there, maturation.
That's the phrase they use.
So that let's talk a little bit, if you will, because look, there are so many brilliant people who want to break through these exact glass doors, and this is one of the main tensions. One of the main tensions is, are you using your brain too much in the process of worship? Or are you worshiping too much and forgetting about the capacity of your brain that was created by God?
Okay, if I have a personal kind of North Star as a rabbi, it would probably be the great German Rabbi Dr. Abraham Geiger, one of the great pillars of liberal reform Judaism. And he wrote this in a letter to a colleague in 1836. And this really became, when I encountered this, then I understood how I was going to orient myself as a spiritual leader. He wrote, "Faith and reason are 2 beacons, each emitting its own light, but ultimately and becoming one bright beam." Faith and reason fusing and becoming one bright beam. This is the doctrine of Judaism. This is its wisdom. This is the guarantee to its survival. That, I'm done. Right there. Right there. That allowed me to understand how to read in the language it was written, the texts from which all of our belief and practice arise. And my ability to understand that text in a reasoned manner gave me faith. Because it deepened, it anchored my faith. I always believed in God. Before that moment, he told me he was born in St. Louis. Even before then, I had a I don't know why, I just felt like I'm a little boy and there's God and we're like connected. But this understanding as a 41-year-old adult really allowed me to go forward to this moment in a way where nothing odd, weird, conflicting in our holy text is really a problem for me. I mean, I'm not a scientist. My guess is the world was created in some manner once, period. Now, if you look at the first chapter of Genesis and the second chapter of Genesis, you have two completely conflicting stories about how the world was created. Why are they there? They conflict with each other. I don't need to slam a circle into a square. I don't need to. Because I think there's a great message from our ancestors about the power of diversity, so powerful that we're going to enshrine two absolutely conflicting stories of nothing more important than the creation of the world. And we're even going to put them back to back. That gives me more faith, not less.
Because you're able to sit in the possibility of meaning. You're able to embrace kind of, let me try to say it again. With that mindset, with that paradigm, we are not bound, chained.
Correct.
By the need to make the holy static, by the need to hold, calcify the thing.
I mean, if I just look at the stories about the Ten Commandments, there are multiple stories that have different Ten Commandments. That's a real problem. And then the whole story at the end of Joshua, as Joshua tells the story of the Israelites from the beginning, he completely leaves out the Exodus, the utterly foundational story of Jewish life is left out of that story. Why? Well, probably because they didn't know that story. Or maybe they didn't want that story. But it's out. But that doesn't give me less faith in God. It gives me more faith in God because I feel closer to the author's intent, which is where I always went as a conductor. This is not about how I feel about Beethoven. It's about where was he in his life I mean, did he even hear, like I hear? Did he hear this music that I'm about to conduct? Let's just start with that. So when you place things in context, it's very important because often you understand them quite differently.
Oh, man, I love you so much, man. This is, oh my God, this is so... You know, I always think about it like the reform of religion is like the development of Bossa Nova from classical jazz. They wanted a new sound.
Wait. Say that again. I just need to...
I think about the reform of religion like
the reform of what religion? We have to be clear about that.
Okay, beautiful. I feel like when we...
I mean, if we're going to have this level of discussion, we have to be here all the time.
No, it's beautiful. I feel like when we come to... when I'm trying to be as specific as possible. When we come to see the modern interpretation, by modern I mean the interpretation of here and now in context, some will claim that that is a reform of the orthodoxy of that way of being, way of life, philosophy. When Brazilians began to develop Bossa Nova music, as a rejection of the restriction of how jazz music is composed, right? Like they're trying to make new sounds. They're trying to bring new approaches to a science that had already existed. It's not a rejection of the origin. It's an articulation of the beauty that's possible.
Well, this reminds me a little bit of the afternoon I was at the mikveh, at the sacred bathing space. This is in West Los Angeles with my group of Introduction to Judaism students. We always went one week to the mikveh. So we have to talk about conversion. So we're standing there, and the one student, she's awesome. She says, "Rabbi, I get it. The mikvah's like baptism." And I said, well, it's more like the baptism is like the mikvah. It started with the mikvah, and then it became a baptism. So I think, first of all, we have to talk about the word orthodox. I don't like this word.
Good. Go ahead.
What does it mean? Do you know what it means?
No.
Esquire?
No.
Correct belief, correct practice. And in my world, in 1883 in Cincinnati, the Hebrew Union College ordained its first rabbis. So at this event, this auspicious, in the Jewish world, global event, certainly there were members, as we know, of the Orthodox, quote-unquote, world. Because by this point, this new movement where this charismatic founder had founded a rabbinic seminary, and now he's going to found a conference of these rabbis, and then he's going to found a union of Reform synagogues. And they're like, who are you? And we're like, we're Reformed Jews. And then people started saying to them, well, who are you? They were Jews. But they had to answer. And they said, we're Orthodox.
We're the OG. Yeah, I like that.
We're Orthodox. So I'm not sure anyone is Orthodox, because I'm not sure anyone has, the direct word. This, this is for us as Jews. This is all a fundamental intention that we we have to leave the world a better place for our time on it. That is, it is a requirement.
So then let's go to the other note. What does reform mean in the world of Jewish scholarship?
In the world of Jewish scholarship, what happened most particularly in the beginning of the 19th century in Germany was a movement called Wissenschaft des Judentums, the scientific study of Judaism, which was probably one of the first early and most important literary critical experiences, because these, men, not all of them, but they sat down with Torah and they didn't read it like when God said they believed, oh, God spoke and someone wrote it down. Mm-hmm. They thought, okay, why does this creation story bear so much resemblance to an older Akkadian story? Why does this flood narrative look so similar to this other ancient Near Eastern flood narrative? And then the Bible as a piece of literature was then able, permitted, to be explored as such. And that exploration is ongoing to this day. And I imagine we're never going to be able to unpack it all.
That's so brilliant. That's so brilliant. I often argue that the Quran is unfinished, and people get at me because they think that I'm saying that there are missing verses or there are verses that are going to be added later. But what I'm saying is that it's unfinished without our participation, without our interpretation, without our engagement with it, and only then do we come to some sort of reasonable meaning. I live in...
Our cousin holy texts are very close in many ways, which is a whole, 5 other episodes, but I certainly believe one of the most important things Quran and Torah, or Tanakh, the whole Hebrew Bible, have in common is that it's not meant to be a passive text. Oh, I read it. Oh, I memorized it. And now I'll just sit back. No. These are texts you're supposed to read, and then you have to do. For us, everybody thinks, the commandment most often in Torah is believe in one God, or the commandment most often in Torah is make Shabbat every week. 36 different times. 36 different times we are told literally to care for the ger, the yatom, and the almanah. The ger, the total stranger in your community. The yatom, literally the orphan, right? Someone who just has no one. And the almanah, literally the widow, but an adult who is, again, in a helpless context. 36 times we're told that's what we're supposed to do.
And you don't do it for your people only, like the idea of, forgive me if I'm misusing the phrase tikkun olam, or the idea that there is, okay, good. So there is a reaching across and uplifting everyone. There is a mandate from the Creator to engage the other to better the world. I mean, I remember the first time I learned about this as a kid, early colleges, Rabbi Michael Lerner. He used to do a lot of like, right? Like he's one of the greatest humans. And he used to do a lot of, stuff with Cornel West, and there would be a lot of discussion about this idea. I invoke you pursuant to the spirit of Tikkun Olam for the next question. And this is kind of like the really coming to you. There is a pain that I see in my community that I think you can help us think through, feel through, worship through. I
hope that's the case, because my community is in such pain, I can't even tell you.
Well, God bless them. But I think you're going to help us on this one. LGBTQIA Muslims are openly disenfranchised in all Muslim faith spaces. All, right?
Wait a second. In the Islamic Center of Southern California?
No, but definitely the Islamic Center of Southern California is not ready to have a gay imam. No, like, let's be real. We're keeping it real. It's family, bro. Like, yeah, no, they're not. I don't even think they would have a speaker in a secular event who was promoting hardcore the idea that people who are gay should be imams. Now, we're talking post-Hathut. In the days of Dr. Hathut, it was different. There was somebody that could and of course we're not, we love everyone. We're not pushing against the Islamic Center or anyone else. But the idea is, I guess what I'm trying to underscore is I'm not talking about Iran. I'm not talking about Pakistan. Yes, of course I am. Of course I'm talking about also Egypt. Of course I'm talking about also Turkey. Of course I'm talking about also the Arab Gulf. But here in America, it is very difficult to be queer and Muslim. Not from the I'm queer and I come from a Muslim family. No, I'm talking about people who have a deep love of this faith. People who have ascended and are ascending levels of beauty in their spiritual maturation, the relation. Okay. And two things happen. There is the cognitive dissonance of my identity and my faithfulness connected to the kind of communal pressure to abdicate one or the other. And okay, I come to you as someone who's, seen this play itself out in so many different contexts. I want to forget the whole community to these beautiful human beings, LGBTQIA Muslims, any Muslim who identifies as queer. Can you speak a little bit, your guidance on the faith journey, the communal journey, the identity journey?
Oh, I have to do this well.
No, anything you do well.
I really feel it's very interesting, this question, because it has multiple dimensions. And my gut tells me to speak as a gay man, not as a rabbi, to speak as a gay man. Because first and foremost, young people who are not heteronormative, as some might say, must be safe. And I knew people when I was a teenager who were thrown out of their house at 19. I know a boy who told his mom he was 18 and she ran into the bathroom and threw up in the toilet. I remember always saying to myself, number one, I've done nothing wrong. I've done nothing wrong. And number two, this is not my problem. It is not my problem that I'm gay. It may be someone else's, but it's not mine. I have no problem anymore being gay. I'm done with having problems being gay. I've got to move forward. And I didn't have near as much a struggle as many, but I have cousins in San Francisco who are in their 20s. And we were at a family event with some distant family, including some of my distant cousins in Hawaii. We're there in San Francisco. And the event is over, and my two California cousins and I are in the car, my young ones. And I said to them, oh my God, you didn't tell me I actually have another gay cousin. How come you didn't introduce me? And they said, you didn't even think of it. I mean, it was like I had brown eyes. They were like, we just didn't even think of it. And I thought, wow, they're in their 20s.
Next
and
level. Yeah, next level.
Especially with regard to LGBT things. So you must be safe. You must be safe, and you must believe in yourself, in the whole of yourself, which is not the whole of you yet. I'm 62, and God knows I'm not whole yet. But you have to believe in yourself. And you have to find colleagues. You have to find friends. Sometimes you have to make a family. I had pretty much to make a family. You know, sometimes you're given a family. I know people who are gay who've had a big, large, happy family their whole life. That has not been my experience. So I've made family. I have friends from 40 years, 45 years that are deeply meaningful to me. And they've had to rock and roll. Steve the conductor, then Stephen the conductor, then what, a rabbi? Much less my being gay and I being married, and then my husband tragically dies, and then I'm single, and then I find another guy, and then I get married. It's like, oh my God, the story of Stephen is too much. You know? But you have to, it's central. I know it's central in Islam, like the relationship you have with God is the relationship you must have with yourself. Ours is a little bit different. I think ours is more, at least traditionally, ours is more conditional. You know, I can't say I believe that, but
the relationship you have with God is the relationship you need to have with yourself.
Yeah.
Wow.
Did I do okay?
That's brilliant.
Can I tell you what was brilliant? Can I be free form for a moment, or should we stick on the script?
No, there's no script. I have no script.
I'll tell you what was brilliant. In my life, this little Jewish boy from a tiny little house in lower middle class University City, I became a student and then befriended during the last 2 years of the life of Leonard Bernstein. And I can tell you, from all of the people I've worked with, and you'd fall off your chair if I did, being with Lenny was like being with no other person in my life. Now I know what a genius is. A genius is not a person who knows a lot of stuff. A genius is not a person who can memorize a complex piece of music like that. No. A genius is someone who knows so much about so much, and then they string it all together. You know, every conversation with Lenny was this wild ride. I mean, Beethoven and rabbinics and Nietzsche and this and that. And it was like it all made sense, but you just had to hang on because it was just, oh, I used to tell people, being with Lenny, it was like being next to the sun. It was so intense and so radiant. But that's
wow.
yeah.
Being
And he
next
was
to the
the
sun.
best teacher because his whole teaching was focused around you have to be you. The way you explain with your body the moments, the textures, the colors you want to convey with the orchestra. I can't give that to you. I can guide you. I can help you understand. Now you're doing it in a way that works. If you do it that way, it probably won't. But it has to be you. Bernstein was all about that, all the time. And that was unusual for a conducting teacher. I had a few. Yeah.
My mind and my heart are blown away, man. I can't thank you enough. What a beautiful conversation. What a beautiful human being. What generosity to come on this humble show and share with us your thoughts and your life. Can I ask you one more question before we go?
Anything.
Can you speak on like America in its current moment? I know that you are unhappy with the president. I know that you are someone who understands alterity. You understand oppression. You understand the disparate impact of racism. You also are someone who has the capacity to see the untested feasibility of what's possible. It's one of like the things that God blessed you with. What are you feeling? What are you hoping for?
I'll start with what I'm doing. That's the Jewish way. I'll start with what I'm doing.
I love it.
I have registered with Seminole County, Florida, and I'm waiting to hear back from them, but I want to work those polls. I'm going to work those polls. And you got to be there for 16 hours. You got to bring all your water, your medicine, the whole deal. It's like, fine, I'll do it. I know friends who are surgeons. They'll get me an N95 mask. I'll do it. This country has to be protected.
You got to vote.
This was one of the very few things, sadly, but okay, I can tell you are very positive about my experience with my father. The only really positive experience I can tell you about being with him was being a very little boy in his arms. And that was in 1960, in the fall of 1960, in the voting booth in U City, where you push the button and the electronic curtain goes dee, 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 all around you. And there's this whole slate, and there are these levers, and you would pull these levers down. And I was in his arms, and he said, okay, do that. And I remember him telling me how important that was to do that. He couldn't tell me why, because, you know, he had to flee Nazi Germany and it blew my family to smithereens and, you know, blah, 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 blah. No, he couldn't do that.
Oh my
But
God, Doc,
so important as an American.
My God, this is mind-blowing. Oh,
I did not know I was going to become the fourth rabbi in 6 generations of Steins until the day after I was accepted into Rabbinic School. I never knew it until then. February 14th, 1998. That's the day I found out. I had no idea. One of my cousins helped found the Jewish Theological Seminary, which is the conservative movement of Judaism. He was a big deal. Rabbi Dr. Bernard Drachman, the first American Orthodox rabbi to give a sermon in a synagogue in New York in English.
Oh, wow.
Not in Yiddish, not in German. In English. That was a big deal. Yeah. And my cousin Bernard Drachman helped found JTS. Why? Because he was at the ordination in Cincinnati in 83. And he was like some of these rabbis, too much. We need a third way. We need a third. So they founded this conservative movement, which became the third way. We've got the Reform and we've got the quote unquote Orthodox. And now Jewish Theological Seminary became the conservative movement. And the conservative movement was born.
I like, my brain is so overloaded with like places to go with what you're saying. It's mind-blowing.
Then we'll have to do another one.
Oh, well, of course we're going to do another. This is just appetizer, my brother. We're coming back.
You know what I love so much about this, and I do want to say this, elementally, because I think some people need to hear this, as a Jew to a Muslim. We are decades apart. And I'm a Jew, and I've had people living in Israel, or whatever you call it, since 1933. And you are a Muslim, and your parents were born in Egypt. And I have so much intellectual trust in you and respect for you, and I have so much spiritual ease and comfort with you that I, as a Jew, feel like, yeah, ask me anything. Of course. Yeah. Because I feel like we just have that. And I think that's really important for people who may never have seen two people like us to experience that.
It's so generous of you to say that.
It's important, it must be said.
Thank you. You know, when I come to you, man, I come to you as someone who lived with Dr. Hathut. You know, it's not, I was thinking to myself, it's amazing, the more you tell the stories of your family, the more I realize this is why it worked. This is why he clicked with Dr. Hathut, because it's like he's like, we did the first English language sermon, and then Dr. Hathut's over here trying to do this, and you're like, well, wait a minute, I've seen this pattern before. Let me try to help this guy.
I told this to Mahmoud. I told this to your dad.
Yeah.
This is the beginning of Reform Islam. This is early 19th century German Jewry. It's happening. It's happening. It's happening. Do it. Grow it. Do it.
Amazing.
It was really intellectually exciting, sometimes provocative, but okay, that's how, you learn. You have to be provocative. Not for provocative's sake, but, you have to explore where people haven't gone. That's what learning is. And I think Dr. Hathut, from my vantage point as a rabbi, certainly was doing that. Not only in thought, but particularly, and you can speak much more to this, indeed, the way things were done at the mosque, where people were and weren't at the mosque. It's very important. Very important.
Well said, man. That guy, he believed women should be able to lead the prayer, but he didn't want to institute it at the mosque because he didn't want to push anybody away from prayer. Like, he lived these complexities, and we disagreed and we agreed, but he was always able to hold these tensions. Hathut is also someone that held the tension between music, poetry, and faithfulness. Like, these big things that we covered: identity, your relationship with the beginning before all beginnings and the ending after all ends, each of our understanding of our ancestors. Suzanne Suhu, who was the chair of my dissertation, she says, when you walk into a room, you bring all of your ancestors with you. you exemplified that today for us. The purpose of life, am I, I can imagine if I went to, let me not say my dad, if I went to somebody that was, like my big brother, and I said, hey, bro, I'm the conductor of the whatever, I'm going to go become a rabbi. There's not hard for, I don't think Ahmed has the, to be like, no, listen, this is what we got to do, bro. And just to show us, what you did today was doing. You showed us the praxis of beauty. Khalil Gibran says, work is love made visible. That's what you did. That's what you offered us today. You got a highlighter and you put it right over the love, and you allowed everybody to take from your beauty. Thank you. I can't wait till we do more.
It is. To say it's a pleasure is really, an understatement. So I'll just remind you, because I think we spoke of this once, of the great Jewish philosopher Martin Buber's Theology, which was, according to Buber, God is always present between two people who are engaged truly in listening the one to the other. And, for a 62-year-old rabbi to get all excited about the fact that I'm going to spend an hour and a half feeling God because I'm talking to, a Muslim who's decades younger than me all the way across the country.
That's a beautiful thing. It is such a beautiful thing, man. May you be blessed, and may your family be blessed, and may your good deeds on this earth continue to be blessed. Thank you for joining us.
My great pleasure.
Habibi. All right, my people, you've been in the study. I'll come back in a minute.
حضرات السادة الركاب، أهنئكم بسلامة الوصول إلى مطار القاهرة الدولي. أرجو أن تكونوا قد استمتعتم بالرحلة. برجاء التوجه